This is Rob Keynes of the Freedom Report, and I have a very special returning guest. She's been on our program before. She's Stefi, the Financial Fox. Stefi, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. Thank you, Rob, for having me on your show.
Absolutely. We tried to get you on during PortFest, but unfortunately, our Starlink satellite service, it wasn't perfect. Musk doesn't have that quite figured out yet, so we lost connection. But I'm glad we were able to, get back on the landline and get you on the program. So appreciate you being patient with us and joining.
How was the festival?
It was good. It's sort of like Burning Man for freedom-oriented individuals. So anybody that believes in freedom, whether it be digital freedom or analog freedom or whatever type of freedom, political freedom, body freedom, anarchists, the whole 9 yards, show up in New Hampshire, which was one of the original colonies here and has a history of being one of the freer states, small government. And so it's a great place to have it. We had a lot of fun. There were a lot of people that were there. I believe Ron Paul, former presidential candidate, was there remotely via Zoom. We had a lot of people from like the Mises Institute. We had a lot of people talking about medical freedom. We had a lot of people talking about digital freedom, CBDCs, things like that. So there were a lot of different topics going on, and I had a lot of fun. It was my first time going. It was quite the experience.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder, you talk about governments and some country maybe trying to give more freedom in different aspects. How does it look like to have a country that actually empower people to be free? How do you run that type of country?
Well,
I mean, what it just
does that even exist? That's the question.
Exactly, it doesn't even exist. Yeah. I think it would be great. I think, freedom is the most important things for humans, right? There are people that just, the most precious things they have got is not really money, it's freedom.
It is ultimately, it's freedom. And I recently joined the board of a nonprofit called Citizens for Sound Money. And on the monetary aspect, we're working to provide alternatives, whether it be gold, silver, Bitcoin, whatever, that states would actually codify into law to say, here, have choices with money. Don't just depend upon our federal government issuing something, because we need competition. We need competition because when you have free money, you have the ability to have a free society. If you don't have free money, it's very difficult when someone else controls the money to be truly free. You're always subject to them controlling that. And that's one of the things that I've done. You and I were talking about before the program about AI. Actually, if you don't mind, I wanted to jump into that conversation.
Yes,
It was awesome. You were asking me what are my thoughts on AI, and I said I think we're very early stage, and in my opinion, until we get computing systems that are capable of forming truly random thought patterns and developing their own thought pathways, much like the human brain does. Maybe that's quantum computing, maybe something like that. But what's your view on that in terms of AI? What's your experience been with AI, and do you in terms of a lot of things that you look at, do you think that it's been beneficial, or it's too early to tell at this point?
Well, I think we have actually said, let's take a step back. We have been talking about AI for many, many years and decades, right? But just over the last few years, when ChatGPT started to become more accessible to people, I think that's where we talk about the AI boom, right? And I think that probably help people to kind of understand a little bit how AI could work. But I think there is a lot of misunderstanding about artificial intelligence and also about these models, right? Because there are open AI is not really open, is very much centralized. And then there are open source models. So I think people still need to kind of get a little bit more the proper grip about AI. But it's definitely fascinating. I think we, like you said, we are very early, especially, if we go back to the IT outage that we experienced right yesterday. Many sectors has been impacted: financial services, media, travel, and we actually saw how just a problem like that can impact lives, can impact everything, and makes me thinking, really, do we have a resilient infrastructure for the AI revolution? We don't. So how we are going to build that. I mean, if we are thinking the stage of the AI where we are is exactly, a bunch of really cool idea funded by VC, and lots of like vision of what the future could be, but we need to get there. It's like, when we were talking about renewable energy, oh, it's great, we don't want to have oil and gas anymore. But, how do you transition from a world that was built on coal and oil and gas to actually just power renewable energy? You still need to use oil and gas. So, I think there is this like bigger question in, in this transition. And I would like to see where really innovation comes in this building the bridge between Web 2 to Web 3 infrastructure. I think that's a very interesting space to watch, and that's probably where a lot of money are going to be made. They are not going to be made in the big cool idea. Maybe a few, but I think there is a really much need to kind of like build this bridge.
Yeah, I think certainly to monetize AI, there have to be products and services that people are going to use, and there's value, in the supply chain. It seems like right now we're at an early stage where it reminds me when I was in 3rd grade and I was on an Apple IIe, and I was programming, little sprites to move across the screen. I could get the sprites to move, but only from what I directly told it to do. But it couldn't think for itself. It didn't have its own pathfinding, and it wasn't until later in computer technology, as we got farther into it, where, we could create characters in games and models and things that could kind of do their own work. And it seems like AI right now is just a representation of people spending hundreds or thousands of hours telling the computer what to do, and then it remodels it back. But are we really at the stage at which computers can kind of think on their own, or at least develop their new thought patterns? And then once we get that, there are a couple of things there. Do we really want that? Do we really trust them? Going back to the cybersecurity incident we've got going on with CrowdStrike and, shutting down all the computer systems, do we really want to trust our computer systems just yet?
Yeah, I don't know. It just raised like some interesting question of where humanity is going. And I do think it's fascinating, but at the same time, we have a responsibility to kind of direct our trajectory at the same time. And when I'm thinking I think also is mainly people with capital, the one they are actually backing and fueling and powering the kind of technology to be integrated, they have a bigger responsibility. It's obviously the government, it's obviously regulators, but even investors side, right? The investor community. Those are the enablers. Well, anyway, it's all a space to watch, right? So
yeah, you've been involved in quite a few startups. Are you involved in anything right now in terms of, or just what do you see emerging in the technology space that interests you?
Yeah, so for what regards AI, I'm actually working with the Hive Digital Technology. They build data center. So yeah, that's kind of like a very a super interesting space, like Bitcoin miners moving to AI, and how basically there is so much power needed for to power this AI revolution that now Bitcoin miners become a very important piece of the puzzle. Super interesting how the two worlds are coming together, right? Crypto space and AI. So and they are a really cool company. I think it's so much like undervalued compared to many others. They Marathon Digital, for example, like big names, $1 billion companies. I think they are really a smart team, and they are doing some really cool stuff. And so that's for one side. And obviously I'm also involved as an advisor to kind of like more startup AI companies, and then doing lots of work obviously in the Bitcoin space. As you know, I will be in Nashville next week. So kind of like crypto. I would say the intersection between crypto and AI.
Yeah, that makes sense. All the processing capability. I'm sorry?
Are you going to be in Nashville?
I've been invited to go by a friend of mine, but I'm not sure if I can make it. It's more of a I wanna go. I hadn't been to the Bitcoin conference in a couple years since it was in Miami.
Yeah.
Um, I wanna go, but it's a childcare thing I have to work out, so I might see you there, I might not, we'll see.
Okay. Well, do text me. Do text me.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah, it does seem like a natural pairing for all the computing power and power requirements of, crypto mining and AI. It makes sense for those to get together. Certainly, it's made NVIDIA, at one point, it was the richest company in the world. I don't know if it still
Mhm.
is, but it surpassed, was it Microsoft? I forgot who it
Yeah.
surpassed. And certainly a lot of their investment in GPU technology, mining technology powered that. And it's also powering, new technology for gamers, which my son likes. He's a gamer. One thing that I'm focused on, of course, is money. I think you know that. And
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the money side of things, especially since we're mentioning the Bitcoin conference.
Yeah.
Since you're going to Bitcoin conference, what's your view on Bitcoin now? Do you think that is it still the lead dog in the race, or with this just explosion of alternative coins, do you think that we're in an era in which we're moving from like generation 1 to 2, where you had the original model and then people are making innovations and then something's going to come out of that? Or what's your feel on the money side of this space?
It's interesting because if you would have asked that question to me in the previous cycle, I would have said that we are going to have a multi-chain world. Obviously, Bitcoin is kind of the first one, but we have Ethereum. There is the Apple Store for finance, and we have got many other coins, and each blockchain has got a specific use case that is more that is better for. You see, like Arbitrum, for example, for games. That you have Solana focus on user experience. You have got Cardano, you have got that. And then what basically this cycle told us, so far, is actually going back to Bitcoin. So I think Bitcoin has been the winner, has raised as the winner amongst everything.
Mhm.
There has been at the same time lots of experimentation on Bitcoin to see what else can we build in this ecosystem. So we have seen so much experimentation. I'm not saying that everything is good. I'm not saying, that ordinals are going to have a long life like runes. We don't know. There are so many Bitcoin layer 2s right now that, is crazy, right? And then at the same time, you have got, for example, a problem, which is the UTXO liquidity problem, because there are different blockchain. They actually are run on a UTXO. So, for example, Litecoin, Cardano, and how do you actually bring together this liquidity? So, it's like it's very interesting. But so I'm much more bullish on Bitcoin, and I'm very glad that in this cycle, I basically converted all my assets into Bitcoin. I do have some Solana though. I just have to be honest. But so I'm I would say really positive on Bitcoin. And the other aspect is, let's go back to Solana, is really having a blockchain that is basically focused on user experience for consumer product. So that seems a very interesting, obviously use case. And I think Solana proved to be very strong and resilient after the FTX, crash. So lots of credit to them, and they have got strong community. So let's see where they go. So they also raise, they emerge as well into this cycle. And then obviously we have got lots of memes that makes no sense, but always investor or traders like to speculate. We see that in the penny stock, right, Rob? We talk about public market, and there are penny stocks, everywhere. So that's like a similar, I think is like pretty much the same. But from my side, I'm really excited about what Bitcoin is doing, and how the future is going to look like. It's quite interesting also to see that now the governments are using are paying more attention to Bitcoin. You have got candidates, they support Bitcoin and really pushing into that. And also regulators, they have been quite kind to Bitcoin, maybe not to other, blockchain, but I think on Bitcoin, they kind of accept it as, an asset, financial instrument. I mean, it's now store of value, right? That's what everybody, even in TradFi, advocate for.
Yeah, here in the United States, I think the ETFs are helping Bitcoin quite a bit. I think the SEC kind of leaked an opinion on cryptocurrencies and whether they were securities, and Bitcoin was, in their opinion, the only coin that was not considered a security. And so I think Bitcoin's been given that sort of ability to maybe grow outside some of the regulatory. I think the regulatory approach that's coming for cryptos in the US. And of course, you had Trump recently announcing, he's going to support Bitcoin at the federal level. He wants support for Bitcoin in the United States. And I think part of that is seeing what's going on with the dollar and those types of things. But I think also that innovation. Do you think a lot of what I see in Bitcoin is speculative investment, hunting for profits? But do you think there's a point at which the value of the blockchain itself achieves its own value? In other words, I get the speculation in the coin,
Yeah.
but when does the blockchain really lift it out of just being a speculative asset into something that people are utilizing in terms of like everyday infrastructure? I think that's one of the promises of the blockchain is revolutionizing digital infrastructure, across the world.
Are they not doing that with tokenizing assets? I think that's kind of like an area where with digital assets trying to kind of tokenize everything, and that's maybe what TradFi is. One of the TradFi narrative is really tokenization. So I think that's quite interesting, where blockchain infrastructure is going to be used. How that is gonna, it is going to disrupt a lot of financial markets. So it will be interesting to see how that is going to unfold. But I think also another quite interesting product that was launched recently by Tether, because we were talking about, digital assets, and obviously, there is Bitcoin, but stablecoin, they are helping also, if we can say that, they are pushing the dollar at the same time, because, Tether, they are, one of the biggest buyer of US debt. So I think the latest product they launched, the Alloy by Tether, was, I thought it was quite interesting to get, to create a product for gold that can actually earn yield, and that wouldn't be possible if, you didn't have blockchain.
Yeah. So what else is going in the digital world that you're interested in, that you're going to look at the Bitcoin conference outside of Bitcoin itself? What else are you looking at while you're going to be there?
Obviously, there is a lot of discussion about Bitcoin mining and AI. So that's that. There are really like lots of tracks discussing sustainable Bitcoin mining, and that's all tied up with energy. Because if we think about, I think there was a report by Goldman Sachs saying the power for data center is going to increase by 160% by 2030. And the question is how that is going to be powered. If it has to be powered by renewable energy, how actually we can enable that. And that would require lots of investment as well. So I think lots of like those tracks, quite interesting. Then there is, I think, the ordinals space with NFTs, and that's also something that probably I'm going to be, looking into, just because there's a lot of experimentation happening. And when people say NFTs are dead, NFTs are not dead, because NFTs is just, an application of blockchain, and there is so much that can be unpacked, what an NFT entitled you to. So I think it is an area that has been being redefined as well over these last couple of years. This concept of NFTs, they are not just a collectibles or a PFP. right? Forget that. There is much more happening. There is a question about the future of IP. So some really interesting conversation going on. And the other day, I was actually discussing with somebody, in business, there is this model of franchise that helps to grow. And in a way, if you think about where NFTs are going with IP, like Puggy Penguin is in a way is enabling the NFT holder to license the IP of his own NFT to build a brand within a brand. So that's like maybe the new way to kind of do franchise. So that's super interesting too. And then I want to know more about where Bitcoin investors are investing. So these things about, infrastructure, let's unpack that, because I think following the money, especially for people like us, that we kind of like trying to understand how market move. And I think that's also important. And then also networking.
Yeah. So so you're following money, try to figure out where to invest. What are areas that interest you as an investor in terms of the digital space? I know we talked Bitcoin itself. We talked a little bit about AI. You've mentioned NFTs and maybe the ability to, I look at NFTs, for example, and, a digital picture is great, but that's obviously, I think the greater benefit to an NFT would be maybe simplifying existing processes and codifying ownership, or even chain of custody or something along those lines that talk about real estate, whatever the case may be. There may be real world applications for that type of technology that maybe haven't been developed yet that are very practical. The things that we do every day. I'm wondering, are people taking that technology and applying it to our existing lifestyle and saying, can we use this technology to improve this entire supply chain over here?
Yeah, so that's kind of, and then the concept of NFT tied up also to the concept of identity as well, because the NFT is unique, and that links back to the person that own it. It was interesting because I think it was a German company. They basically create a product, financial product for gold, that was an NFT backed by gold. So I think I'm quite interested in the gold space as well. I mean, I do invest in commodities, and so that's I mean, listen, gold moves like a turtle. Is ridiculous. So but that's also fair. And I think gold needs some innovation. So I'm very excited about what's happening, and I don't think people are talking enough, because even like the Tether announcement, it was really like a game-changing announcement for gold, and it didn't have much publicity. So everything happening in the gold space need to be, maybe because also like the gold bull, they are a bit old and they don't pay too much attention about the innovation, but that's really cool. Then from my perspective, obviously lots of like interest in AI. Yeah, so whatever is like even maybe even blockchain project, they are integrating AI and how we can actually decentralize all these like AI narrative. That's very important. I'm pretty much scared from kind of like surveillance, centralized organization and like that. But at the same time, you need to kind of like educate people, get them up to speed. So that's like another very important topic, I think, and I'm hope that they are going to give some good space at the conference to kind of like how we are going to onboard these billions people to crypto, because if you don't tell people why and how they need to custody their own assets, they are still gonna, invest via Coinbase. And if Coinbase might be okay, but another crypto exchange. We saw like Vazir India, like the largest India crypto exchange, was exploited for like 260 or something million. I mean, these things still happen, right? So.
Yeah, and I feel like infrastructure-wise, we're moving into a new stage of addressing some of those issues. I think when the crypto complex first came out, it's kind of like the internet. It wasn't really based on security. When you look at TCP/IP, it was based upon sharing, and it's like, oh wait, should we have security built in there somehow? And I think, but going beyond security and identification, I think would be like a digital bill of rights that people
Yes.
have talked about, but not really done on a worldwide level yet. But I think given the era we're in now, I mean, we're so far into the digital age now, you can't extract it. It's just a part of where we're going and who we are. And in fact, the only way to collect and to allocate resources efficiently is going to be using, some of these systems. You can't do it manually anymore. It's just not efficient. And I think coming along with these advancements in technology needs to be like a digital bill of rights. I think the European initiative on, privacy of individual information is a good step, but that maybe is only one piece. There needs to be more pieces added to that, and there needs to be, I think, to get the older generations on board with the new digital age, much of their fear is based upon surveillance. They don't understand how to operate in that space. So part of it's education. I think part of it, though, is protecting their rights and providing assurance and systems,
Yeah.
that are going to protect their identities and their rights and make them feel more secure. Or else I don't think that they're going to adopt it. I think that they would opt to live in an analog world if they could. So those are the types of things that I would like to see. I used to work for a big telecom here in the US, and I was on their 5G project doing cybersecurity. And when I looked at 5G, it's a re-engineering of the entire network. It's not just faster speeds, so you can download a movie to your phone. They're re-engineering the entire thing. And within that, what my concern was, this is like a control grid. 5G could enable that, but you could turn it around and say, but it could be a great, it could propel us towards all sorts of freedom and all sorts of information sharing that could be tremendous. I mean, think about educational examples, business examples, but I think that there is a lack of focus on the individual within these systems and how that individual is going to feel safe in these systems. And that's an area that coming from a cybersecurity background, that I would like to take a look at is, as we move further into this, how do we assure people that, these systems are going to be working for them, and it's not that we're just building Skynet over here.
Exactly. And that's all what 𝙁𝙀𝙀 is trying to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, even then, I just think I want to see 𝙁𝙀𝙀.
Yeah.
Right? I want to see like a 𝙁𝙀𝙀 project actually working.
Yeah.
I hear lots of people talking about, lots of investors investing in it, but I haven't seen anything. Maybe I don't know. Have you seen any 𝙁𝙀𝙀 project working and creating value?
No, and I read a lot of news and I hear a lot of ideas, but I'll take it back to what I said at the beginning. I think we're in the early stages, like internet on AOL. We're on dial-up in terms of some of this stuff. We're so early in that a lot of these initial projects, they're ideas that are going to lead to eventually what becomes our infrastructure. But I don't think, what I look at the landscape now, I don't look at it and say, oh yeah, this is going to be in place for the next 20 to 30 years. I think there's a lot more development that needs to occur.
Exactly. I think one aspect, I mean, going back to what you said, that could raise concern for lots of people, I mean, for previous generation, is about governance as well. If we think about DAOs, are DAOs really effective? I mean, with some people, they own the majority of the vote because they have the majority of the coins. And there are lots of questions about DAOs. And that's another area that I'm looking very closely, because like even 𝙁𝙁𝙀𝙀, they came out saying, you can't code everything because everything is not, it's not everything is binary. So you need intersubjective decision. And how do you make a machine doing that? Is that even possible? So how do you create this framework for a shared secure governance? That's another question. And I think DAOs are a very interesting project and organization. They are going to be actually implemented, but are we going to implement it in the right way, where they are actually democratic? They are powering the future of democracy. Let's say that way.
Yeah, and supporting that. And You know, when I was in cybersecurity and we're dealing with big data and we're dealing with machine learning and even applying AI to security events and things like that, or to identification events. Sometimes it's just identification. The problem is you can have all the data in the world, but the computers can't do everything. And I think part of it goes back to not having fully developed AI, but I think also part of it goes back to we still live in a human world, and there's this interface with the digital world, but there needs to be human intervention. And a lot of what I see is trouble defining or setting the frameworks up that help us define the interface between the human side and the digital side. And I think in terms of freedom and governance and things like that, that's going to be extremely important going forward, but also in terms of efficiency. We want the efficiencies of systems while also having human oversight and intervention where needed. And that's part of the industry, I think, that's going to need a lot of development. Maybe the DAOs are an early model to do that. Do you think, I'll turn that back around to you. Do you think, you know, do you think we're there yet in terms of that? Or do you think there's a lot of improvements that need to happen?
I think we are not there yet. I think DAOs are really concerning. There has been some innovation, some project that have been looking at alternative ways to, you know, try to address those point of failure for DAOs. I think we did recently an interview with a professor of Stanford University that has wrote a paper about contestable DAOs, which is a very interesting approach, and is now working with Q blockchain. That is a project that is trying to address, you know, the big problem about governance. Yeah, I just, obviously, yeah, we are not there yet. So who is going to be setting the standard, I think, is also going to be, you know, an interesting point, because, you know, it's about that, it's about governance. But then let's go back to identity, right? The decentralized identity, digital identity also need standards. It needs interoperability standards, and it needs to be integrated. And it's good to come out, oh, this is the, you know, the European Union, I think, is doing a great things to kind of come up with this, you know, regulatory paper framework. I want to see how those are going to be integrated. I want to see how Mika is going to play out, if it's actually going to be fostering stablecoin, you know, transaction, and is going to be successful. So I think the European Union is doing great initiatives. I just want to see, you know, they're actually going to be followed. They're not just announced and everybody's talking about. The US, from my side, I see is being a bit slow in kind of coming up with like, do you have, I mean, regardless of who is gonna win the election, we probably have got an idea, but, you know, we don't want to be pushing any views here. Do you have any particular expectations of for the overall, let's say, digital assets, AI space from the incoming president?
You know, in the American model, it's probably more going to come from the private space and not the government. The government, you know, creation of the Space Force, acknowledgement, you know, of certain technologies, but it's almost more towards military applications. It seems like a lot of the advancement comes from companies like a Tesla or companies, you know, Silicon Valley type companies. But it also seems as though a lot of the investment in the US is towards traditional digital infrastructure, the Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world. And even though they've introduced some rudimentary AI, I don't see big dollars going to advancement of digital infrastructure, specifically like for the consumer space or for you know, projects that would I'm still waiting on people to develop digital ways of solving supply chain problems, of solving business problems. Like I said, real estate. Our title system in the US for real estate, if you buy it, it's based upon the British system that was in place dating back to the Magna Carta. So I mean, we're talking about an 800-year-old system, and we have not revolutionized that. And I'm like, why don't we just stick it all on the blockchain? But nobody's developed that product. And some of it, I think, has to do with the trust factor. But I do think that as we, as the millennials, right, the millennials are now in the stage where they're becoming the big spenders as the baby boomers retire, and then Gen Z behind them. And I think that those generations are going to be the one that really power in the US the next generation of digital technology. And I think we've yet to see, the best to come there. I think that's going to come out in the next 5 to 10 years. If you look at investment in the US right now, investors are looking for things like real estate projects, and they look for analog type of things. Like if I go to investment conferences, excuse me, it's still things like real estate, and it's still things like traditional stock investing, and nobody's really talking about the digital space. Of all the conferences I either speak at or go to, nobody's really focusing that much on it. I mean, you do have the Bitcoin conference, but I don't think the majority of dollars are going there, because if you look in the United States, exactly 50% of all the wealth is still held by what generation? The baby boomers.
Interesting.
My generation, Gen X, who I credit with really building out the internet, or at least the first stage of it. I was certainly involved in that for about 20 years as an admin and, consulting, auditing, all that kind of stuff. I think our generation is more open to it, but we don't have the investment dollars. The investment dollars are sitting in a generation that hasn't really embraced that. And until that wealth kind of moves, and you have those more digital, more technology, I guess, accepting generations, it's going to be harder to get that investment. And so I think in particular in the US, because of the wealth cycle is really preventing a lot of that development. It's really sitting in traditional products. And I think that's why we're behind. And I think that will change over time, but I think it's just a time factor. I think as the baby boomers start to retire and pass on some of their wealth over the next, 10 years or so, I think we'll see a huge amount of interest in developing that space. And like I said, I just want to solve business problems. I would love it if we could just use the blockchain to solve a bunch of business problems, because the
Yeah.
blockchain has about 10 billion different applications.
And you mentioned about supply chain. That's like a
Yeah.
really massive problem. I mean, if we think about even food production, right? How much producers get paid at the end of, all the supply chain? They are paid nothing. They are paid nothing, right, for what they produce. And that's not fair, because there are all these like middlemen up to the point of sales. So that's also a very interesting area of development, is actually how to use blockchain to power a much more transparent and effective supply chain. Is definitely a very interesting area. And I'm seeing some interesting project like coming out of Solana on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we will, we will see. But it's like getting some insights from the US from you is very interesting, because here, in the UK, in Europe, because all the news come from the US, and it's all like Silicon Valley people investing and driving you AI investment and crypto, you actually think that the US is very far ahead with anything that comes like crypto digital assets, and then you think about, but why, for example, they regulators, they are so backwards. So between the reality of the US and maybe the kind of Silicon Valley bubble and some other aspect, I think it seems like there is some discrepancy. That's what I'm.
Yeah, the U.S. is in its state. I'll go back to nation state cycle. Sir John Glubb was someone who wrote about this in '71. Nation states go in cycles, and really where we are in the U.S. is sort of in an identity crisis, where we're emerging from this old system, but we're not ready for the new system. And it's really a generational thing, and it's even reflected in government. The SEC has been so hostile. If you put it's almost like you don't want a blockchain-based product, because as soon as you say blockchain or crypto, the SEC jumps all over you and says, security, we're going to regulate you. And that drives investors out, because that drives up costs. The cost to comply with anything in the United States is ridiculous.
But it's not that they want to regulate you, because at the end, all these mechanisms, because they want to get money out of you, they want to tax you because they need money. So is that all about money?
It's kind of, if I look at the laws and regulations, they were driven by the old world capitalist, and you're talking about Standard Oil, which turned into Exxon. You know, that old sort of banking, large corporation focus is still what has most of the dollars in the political system. And so the political system is often weaponized to keep developments that would challenge existing regimes. So if you look at money, for example, I think they're hostile to Bitcoin because it affects the banking system. It challenges the banking system. It would challenge them to give up their huge transactional fees on credit. Look at the transaction fees on credit cards and how much cheaper you can do it with just about any crypto. I mean, you know, and we have this antiquated wire system, which the rest of the world is developing new, you know, blockchain-based money transfer systems, while the US is sitting here still using SWIFT and threatening people with sanctions. You know, we're not going to let you on SWIFT. And so the Chinese and Russians are like, okay, we'll just go develop our own. Your system's old anyway. And it's like the US's stance towards staying on the current and holding on to that is forcing innovation into other areas, which is causing the rise in many cases of the rest of the world. You see the rise of China. Why? Because their smart contract and tokenization and all of that is, and their Belt and Road Initiative is miles ahead of what the systems we've developed. But it's the entrenched interests, and a lot of that has to do with law and politics and that type of thing. It's very expensive to change. So I personally think that the rest of the world's probably going to lead the way there, and then US is going to have to catch up.
Question: what's your views on the UAE? Because they've been doing a tons of like innovation there, and the government is actually pushing. We want to be the hub of crypto, of AI, and there are also lots of money there. So are you expecting lots of innovation coming from the UAE? Do you think they are going to be leading this like tech revolution for next century?
I think it's quite possible, because if what you look at what's going on in the Middle East, they're moving away from the old analog system, the petrodollar system, from their old relationship with the United States, and they're embracing more of what I call an almost like an Asia Pac, a Europe and an Asia Pac model, where they're forced to develop their own supply chains. I was at PDAC, which is a commodities conference in March, the world's largest one in Toronto, and I talked to a mining company in Saudi Arabia, and they said that Saudi Arabia government is encouraging them to get away from the oil trade and develop their own commodities, but also develop their own supply chain, and they're using a lot of digital technologies to do it. So I think the Middle East right now is in a lot of states like the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Even if you look at other states like Iran, with support from China and Russia, are developing their own non-Western supply chain and business chain and things like that. And they're going to embrace technology. And I think you're going to see a ton of innovation coming from that. And I think Saudi Arabia, for example, they know that their grip on the world's oil supply is eventually going to run out. And they know that. And so they're busy developing their new economy. And I also know I had a friend that was working on a project for Cape Verde. Cape Verde is this small country in Africa. And they were trying to become the hub for the, what do you call it, the connectivity of the rest of Africa. Cape Verde wants to become a hub to where it's basically like a digital hub for connecting all these African countries together and modernizing Africa.
Yeah.
Because what we see in Africa is this huge amount of commodities with no infrastructure.
Exactly.
And China wants it and the world needs it. But the only way to extract it is to go digital, because one, you have to tokenize those assets to make sure that those countries are able to track those assets. Smart contracts are become extremely important as they do business with China, because China wants smart contracts everywhere. So I think that there are Asian countries and European countries investing in Africa in their digital infrastructure. So I think that whole side of the world, if you cut, down the middle of the globe, the map, that whole side of the world is embracing new systems and they're embracing technology. So it would not surprise me if that's where the bulk of the innovation comes from.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Great to have you on. I know we've been going about 45 minutes. I could talk to you for hours, but we'll keep it short. We're going to put this on 2 channels. I want to put it on mine, and then I want to put it on Citizens for Sound Money, because I think over there we have a lot of people interested in the digital side as well. They're interested in digital money. So I want to put you over there. But real quick, for people that may not have seen you in a while, tell us about your services, your website, and all that kind of stuff, so people can find you.
Yeah, sure, fantastic. So obviously my name is Stefania Barbaglio. I run PR investor relation company here in the UK. We have been working with over 100 companies over the last almost 10 years, I think, across the globe, so not just UK. And we also have a podcast called Financial Fox that Rob has been on. I interview really cool people that I think are kind of like the game changers of the tech and finance space. And I think, if you're interested, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Rob, you need to come back after Nashville. We are going to do maybe a recap.
Yeah, we should, because I think there's so much that's going to be discussed there.
And I think it's something that perhaps we could discuss is about this tokenization of commodities, or we can take the AI infrastructure and Bitcoin mining side, can pick up something that maybe your audience is interested, and we can talk about that. I hope that you can make it.
I'm going to try to make it, even if I have to drive. Last minute, I'm going to try.
Where are you? Where do you live? Where you are actually located?
I'm in Dallas, so it's not too bad. It's about 9 hours for me to get over to Memphis. I think it's is it Memphis or Nashville?
Nashville.
Okay, yeah, it's about 9 to 10 hours, so it's not too bad.
Driving.
Yeah, I just got to figure out, I have parental responsibilities, but once I figure that out, I definitely like to come. I know it starts here in a few days.
Bring your kids with you.
I might do that. I might, that. In fact, I think my son and my daughter would probably really enjoy it. It's, they're Gen Zers, and this is, I actually would be a great way for them to see potential investment opportunity. And for my audience, I know my audience tends to be a little bit more on the analog side at times, but I encourage people listening to this interview to really embrace some of the concepts we've discussed here, because we're moving into a digital life. And that's just going to be the way it is. But I think some of the concerns we talked about with speed, efficiency, security, identity, those types of things will be more of interest to people that may not understand it. And if you want a voice in this new digital world, it helps to plug in and understand what's going on, and potentially even invest. A lot of the baby boomers in my audience are sitting on a ton of money, and they're afraid to go invest.
Exactly. Because they think everything is a scam, right?
They think it's a scam, but they're also afraid of the analog world because they don't trust bonds and stocks. And so they're sitting there going, what do I do?
Exactly. And it's not, they want to make returns, bigger returns. And I know that I have lots of friends like that. They invested in stock forever, right? And I talk about crypto and they said, oh, no. But then they see going up, or they see something succeeding, and they wanted to be part of it, but they were too scared to get in. So it's definitely, important that everybody kind of get up to speed with this concept. And, we are here talking about it, and it's great because, it's a way to educate people and share our insights, that we are on that all day long.
Yeah, I would say two things on top of what you said to edify what you said. One, people are afraid of crypto, but private cryptos may offer sound money alternatives outside of CBDCs. And a lot of my audience does not like CBDCs. I'm not a big fan.
And I'm one of them.
Yeah. So private cryptos, gold, silver on blockchain, like with Kinesis, those are solutions that would work in the new world that would give you freedom for your money. And secondly, if you just don't like crypto, if you're scared of it, there are so many other things to invest in other than crypto, around infrastructure, around security. They're going to be huge. They're going to be a part of the digital space. Smart contracts. Smart contracts may do more to support individual ownership and chain of custody and those types of things, and protect against identity theft and things like that, that are going to be huge concerns for every generation. So just because you may be a little bit older, you've grown up in the analog world, you may not understand the digital world. The digital world's here, and there's going to be tremendous opportunities in there. And I just encourage people to kind of follow that. I think if you look at traditional stocks and bonds, that's going to come under a lot of pressure, especially here in the United States. I think there are bubbles in both. And so you're going to want to look at alternative investments to put your money into.
Yeah, true. Rob, thank you for having me on the show. It was a great discussion.
Absolutely. I love talking to you. I hope to If I get out to Bitcoin, I'll drop you a note, let you know. Maybe
Yeah,
we can sit down and
100%.
have a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of event, and we're just gonna drag you along
Okay, sounds
with the kids as well.
Thank you so much, Steffi. I appreciate it. And if you'll hang on for a second after the interview, I want to chat with
Yeah,
you real quick.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.